were talking about what we think with the electronic spectrum is that if I can see it, I can hit it. If you have this, even if you have a command center, which first got really hit in the first year, because there are these command centers that give off electronic magnetic spectrum. It's like blinking light. So I just hit that. Even if you were to use a tethering system, so to offset the signal way away from where you are, that's needed for whatever command and control or weapon systems or something. But this is why decoys are coming back, right? So decoys are some of this stuff is ancient combining with modern technologies, but if you get caught lacking in creativity, then you pay a price and you have to make the adaptation. Where like balloon decoys are coming back, but on the technology senses, militaries are having to figure out how to offset the signature. They're emitting even for their own military purposes, whether it's for even a weapon system. If some of these things require radar, you have to offset the signal. It's really fascinating. You see humans developing action, reaction, counter reaction in the pursuit of within my world of war.
So yeah.
I was in the AI space one time. It wasn't any of these people, but really talking through like the ethics of AI
likewise,
weaponry and how what you really know is where AI is present right now versus where it's not, and you have all these conspiracies, but how effective artificial intelligence is, because what you were about, which I think is militaries really struggle with, this is cognitive overload, right? So the whole thing with the Iron Man suit is that we always want to push information to the soldier or whatever who's in some way. It's not the Ender's game. It's an inexperienced person who has a certain cognitive load. I actually ran experiments at West Point with cadets where I gave them virtual reality goggles to be able to be on the objective before they attacked it. So like to do that just that they were so cognitive overloaded that they couldn't even function. They couldn't even look at it. Like I can't do anything with this. I was in combat when I had multiple information feeds coming at me under stress, and for some reason scientists that the militaries will use in all of our research labs, you just need more information. No, that's not what I need. Because I'll be saturated with information, not be able to make that life or death situation. That I need the right information at the right time. And if you give me another piece of information, what information are you taking off of me? I mean, it's even come with the drones.
Likewise, lovely
Everybody wants drones. But you can't add that monitoring a drone. I've been a part of a bunch of experiments where you give them all modern technologies to shoot, like you were talking about the drone swarm, and they're looking at the little screen, and they're walking through, and then they get shot in the face. And they're looking at the little screen, and they weren't paying attention to the actual threat of the environment. Figuring that out is still a huge military problem, is what information to give a person at what time and what's their cognitive load, because you can increase somebody's cognitive load. And why does there's a really famous book called Flow, which is a psychologist wrote this book about once you've done something enough, your mind kind of does it autonomously. So you go into like a race car driver, right? You do things at speeds and make decisions that nobody else can because it's reached this certain level of flow. Well, there's nobody in the military that's except for these very special individuals who have been filtered to where they can handle more information. You can train them and they can handle even more information. I don't know why some militaries want to go to these very professionalized forces, because you can give them technologies that other people can't handle because they can receive more. They can offload cognitive load. But if you were to give that to a private, you just go to, which I ran the test.
basically kind of highlights the concept where you could literally change the world with one single step, or at least impact a quite a large amount of people with that one decision. You can make a post that could just change everything. So I also highly encourage people to like post stuff that's really relevant, not just like stuff that's negative and conspiratorial in that sense, but is actually useful, right? And not just things that are useful to you, but also things that you know for certain could be useful to others. So that's something that I highly encourage people to put out as well.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. How X works, like you keep posting junk, and all you're going to see is junk. So you're not going to get you're not going to get anything out of it, and neither is anybody who's following you.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to encourage people to post. What's that thing I always say is, you have to think beyond the monetary aspect. You have to voluntarily consider that what you're doing is you're signaling to actual people, and what you must consider within doing anything is what impact does this have on people? Do you think people actually think this is interesting? This is something I run through every single time I'm about to make a post. Is this interesting to the majority of the people who follow me? Is it just interesting to this small niche over here that may be interested in this, who are also following me? That's like something I have to kind of consider all the time. So I try to curate the maximally curious, and then see where that goes from there. But yeah, it's interesting. If all you do is post, say, for instance, engagement farming questions, then literally no one's going to have any interest in you, and your value as an account is basically none. As a matter of fact, I think it causes negative impact as a result of basically you spamming stuff that has obvious answers. Because imagine if there's, like, say, a question that I have that is related to, say, something that is technological in nature, or something I need to know really quick, then basically my question will be drowned out by all of the non-questions that are also asked. You know what I mean? So it's like you're in this cesspool of questions, and it's just an engagement farming group that doesn't provide anything that's useful.
Right, and it's almost like you have to have the bad in order to have the good. For me, like I have no interest in monetizing. I'm an academic. My interest is in sharing knowledge and learning, which I really think there's an absence of academia in this collective hive mind. It's like your job, your role in the world is to educate, share knowledge, increase the body of knowledge. How are you not engaged in this? We have others who are, they're only posting hate or whatever to increase their following so they can increase their subscriptions or whatever. I'm unburdened by those requirements, so I'm actually just trying to either inform or learn using this amazing platform.
For sure, exactly. Like you generally have a responsibility here, I think, for what you post, and that's something that people need to consider. Especially, like, what's also interesting? I like the policy that X has around, say, accounts which are government officials. Like, say, for instance, we have just Goldie up here, who is a account with a gray check mark. What that means actually is, that they themselves don't get monetization. So there isn't even an incentive there's not an incentive of payment for those types of people, which I think is actually very interesting, because then the incentive for you to post anything is just for the people. And I think everyone should think of it the same way, just for the people. It's not for the algorithm, it's not for anything else. It's always just for the people. Numbers can mean anything, and it doesn't mean much at the end of the day. What matters is what impact you have on people, whether or not that impact is positive. And we have to consider this as well. We all live for a very, very long time, and we will die one day, sure, but one must consider that what you put out here has an air of permanence to a certain extent, I think. It's the internet, right?
Yeah, and I try to help people understand in lectures, like your mainstream media, like you have to understand the business framework. Like it is for profit, it has to do certain things. And we definitely should hold them accountable to standards, but you understand that they're purporting, because everything costs. There's some really famous people who say, like, if you want good stuff, then there has to be you have investigative journalists and things like that. And we're seeing changes to all this, and some of the changes are so fast, it's like really hard to keep up.
Very long. Yeah, exactly.
Well, thanks, Adrian. Amazing space. I'm more than happy to do it whenever schedules align, and especially if it's within my space, but I also love joining and listening as you see me down in the spaces sometimes.
Yeah, definitely too. too, so that's kind of cool. I mean, thanks that you see value in what I do. It gives me an understanding that what I do is actually it's valid in a sense. You know what I mean? Like it's something where people say, oh, you know, you shouldn't really seek validation to a certain extent. But if you are talking about certain things that are somewhat beyond your field of expertise, then you have to kind of seek to an extent validation from people who are experts in the niches of which you speak, right? This is kind of something I think is really important. So thank you very much, and thank you for the feedback. And any feedback that you may have on what I'm doing would be most welcome.
Great. Thanks, AJ.
And thank you very much. If you all have enjoyed this show and would like to see more shows like it, please do follow me. I'm always here. I think I'm going to start a space just after this one, which I call the information space, where we practically discuss anything. It's a daily show. It's running a bit late because this space, is very long. But yeah, do join me for that. I am going to end it here. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you, John Spencer, for giving us the time, and this much time especially. So, yeah, man, awesome stuff. Have a good day and night.
Good night.
Kind of seek.
So we're going to another Adrian Dittman room, aka Elon Musk. Sure. Tomorrow or next week?
You are like direct
application of your tax, it's always there's like a lot of indirection. Like first you vote, and then you kind of having a bet on the candidate, like giving you a promise, and you put your faith in them, and then the taxes go in some other direction. So if you had a direct say where you want your particular taxes to go, perhaps with a choice of options, I think that would at least give certain degrees of freedom. But then again, it has consequences as well.
Indeed, it does. Like, I mean, taxes themselves, especially there's two factors. One, of how it is enforced and where it's being spent. That's the only gripe that I'd have. Other than that, I wouldn't really have a problem with taxes. Like, if it went to if it went to something that's good, like say maintaining certain types of infrastructure, and to make sure that that infrastructure, of course, is the best quality for the money that you can spend on, that would be great. Because the current way it has been done is just, I think, kind of misaligned in a sense as well, which does a great disservice to the concept of taxes and how it is actually supposed to work, right? Like, you wouldn't need massive taxes the way they currently exist if you actually had a system that is trying to effectively use the money that it earns effectively, or it brings in rather, as opposed to earning, in a manner that is reminiscent of a business, right? Governments need to kind of like run the same way. They kind of need to be run in the same way that a business runs itself. If that is not done this way, then obviously it's going to lose money, and there's no way to get back, because the actual thing is you need to have some sort of thing be sustainable in a sense. So they get money in for a type of service that they provide. That service is, of course, say maintaining infrastructure and whatnot, and making sure that, say, a country's citizens are secured via its various institutions. That's the service that they provide, and you pay effectively with a certain percentage for those services, right? And it's actually interesting because normally you would function in a way that, say, it is in the government's best interest to make sure that your life is as financially profitable as possible, because then they themselves would actually gain more money as well. So from a business perspective, if they were to kind of like execute upon that more in that direction, then everybody would win. That's actually conceptually how it's supposed to work. So again, I don't have a problem with taxes. It is the execution of them and how they're spent. I got a good shit all about taxes, honestly.
Yeah, we need to show taxes.
Do we have like a show on how to do them?
That would be a good one.
Oh my god. Adrian tells you how to do your taxes. I don't know if we want to do that. What if we had like a person who's an accountant or something like that? Someone who's actually, a lawyer, you bring in and have a space on taxes. Like, actually, how do you do your taxes more effectively? How do you set up a company that helps you do these types of things? Because that's another important thing as well. It's important if you have say something that is really enterprisey to actually have a business for that as well, because that allows you to kind of manage your debt, because you as a business will always have debt, and you can kind of leverage that to not pay as many taxes, because of course you need the money to make sure that the business scales up. And every company does this, of course. There's nothing illegal about that whatsoever. What's illegal is if you evade, right? There's differences, of course.
I remember watching a very interesting video about this a while ago, and basically what they were arguing was that you could have a law or a system where if most of the population disagrees with how the taxes are being spent, then the government can't spend any more tax dollar.
But can they spend up until the threshold or nothing?
So the way that they were doing it was they were arguing for so they were doing it in terms of like a system where it will be kind of automatic, right? So the money would be created in an automatic way, and it will be given in an automatic way, but most of the population, if they disagreed with how it was being managed, then it would lead to a situation where the money that the government was spending would be paused. So you would have to get like 70 or 80% of the population to disagree and say, okay, we don't like the direction that the taxes are being spent. And then they will pause the system.
Interesting.
on wars, and then you actually ask him about, like you brought it up, that AI will actually solve everything. So you let two sides, I guess will be like versions of AI talk to each other and resolve everything without even loss of a drone. So it'll be like completely lossless war.
Yeah. I mean, I've kind of been talking about the kind of autonomous drone warfare for a very long time, even as a kid. And I started realizing this when I saw the first DJI drone. I was like, this fucking thing is really small. It costs a lot now, but in comparison to what was once a drone before this, I kind of see this and I see parallels in computing as well. That could become very, very inexpensive very quickly beyond what it currently is costing. Everybody's kind of laughing about that. I'm like, no, man, there's a huge personal demand for this. Look, it's a tiny little flying fucking thing, has a camera on it, and you can just annoy people with it. Nobody can really take it down unless they have like countermeasures for this. That is hilarious. People are just gonna get that. People drive around with trucks that have extremely loud speakers and say a horn in it just to annoy people. They're definitely going to get a drone, and that drives up demand as it is. And imagine just from an offensive perspective, like, wow, this thing doesn't cost much in comparison to something else. You can sabotage infrastructure and anything. It's kind of funny that a kid would think this way, but, then again, I'm weird. But started kind of like putting that together when I saw fish. You ever seen like a school of fish and how they move? It's kind of interesting, right? All of these are independent entities in a sense, right? But yet they move as this kind of mass with the sole purpose of surviving. Like they group up together and they swim around like this to become confusing so that something like a predator fish cannot identify the individual fish, because that's what the shark or whatever predator fish tries to do. They try to effectively swim to this mass that the fish assume and try to single out an individual fish, then catch and, of course, inevitably devour. And when I saw that, I was like, wait a minute, that's kind of what you'd want a small team of drones to be able to do effectively, right? To kind of maneuver around in ways that they don't bump into each other or certain types of infrastructure. And the same thing also with birds. You ever seen like a migration? It's the most beautiful thing you'll see, especially in real life. You'll see this mass of birds flying around like clouds. It's beautiful. So orderly, like with this kind of mathematical aspect of fluid dynamics just governing this beautiful mass. And you think about that in terms of drones, right? That's what I always like kind of troll Sierra with, who used to work at XAI. And it's like, hey, what if we did drone swarms, but like the drone swarms are individually sentient to a certain extent, right? And you just had them fly around, like small little attack drones with their own little computer aboard. And it's like, no, 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 no. And now what if we did it with lasers? Absolutely the fuck not. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's not my fault that I want to weaponize everything.
Yeah, like the bird swarms actually use, like you said, mathematical precision, and the way once they they create flow with the air, and then the next bird behind leverages that flow. So it has to expend less energy, and it's really incredible how they synchronize.
Exactly. So I think that's something you could do for drones, perhaps as well. And of course, you look at compute. I think in the future that's going to become, very, very weird, because you'd have to assume that eventually you'll reach a threshold where I think the AI itself is almost like a version of a phone. Phones themselves kind of improve over time. Well, for most companies, anyways, that have a rapid sense of innovation. Not really Apple necessarily. They have a very small rate of innovation, a very light rate of innovation. They're still good. Like, don't make a mistake that they're still good. But look at something like an Android manufacturer, such as Samsung, for instance. Their rate of innovation is remarkable. Like, they have a thing that's a flip phone and a fold phone. Who else has that? The Chinese do. They have a remarkable rate of innovation as well. I'd even say that Huawei was and still is much better than Samsung in many, many different ways. They make the best phones by far. I had like a Mate 30 Pro, which is Huawei, and then I got a Galaxy S21. Even though the Mate was older than the 21, it performed better. I was like, that's wild. Even when I got the 23, the Mate Pro kind of like still worked out a lot better. I thought it was even more stable in some areas.
Huawei
was wild.
Were also making their own chips with
Yes.
TSMC. They
Yes.
designed their own
Yes.
chips,
Yes.
and they are performing better than Samsung's chips even.
Yep, exactly. So if you look at something like that, for instance, and this is a good point that he makes as well, you take that example, if you were to apply that to something like AI compute, at some point you'll have companies such as what Etched is, where effectively they'll etch the AI itself in the structure directly on the chip, which is, of course, has the side effect of you not being able to change that anymore. But I think you'd have a stability of program that is high enough for you to actually have that be a viable thing to do, where you don't need to change it that much. You could just basically have this thing function more effectively, on board in, say, a configuration of something like a drone or a device. Offline and everything, just completely off-grid. Battery, compute in it, does its fucking thing. You don't even talk to it, give it additional instruction, whatever you want, and then you set it off there. No way to interfere with it. It's on its own.
Yeah, 30-man chip is definitely like a bare metal thing almost. It's like pretty much embedded. No virtualization.
Yes. Just latency reduction is that's the thing that you need as well. And to have it be effectively its own brain is also very important, right?
Yeah, I wonder how far away from that happen.
Oh wow, this is wild. This guy's about to get ratioed by his sat. Let me put up something in this space that you might find interesting. So there's this account on here, it's called Don Luker. He steals a fuck ton of content from everyone, always. And I recently stole a piece of content from this person over here, who's known as Savannah Hernandez, right? I had the comment at the top. So,
You mean
been through this before. Don't steal my footage without crediting me. I waited outside for 3 hours and got rained on, and then had to wait another 3 inside for Kamala to finally come out. Don't appreciate this at all. Yeah, don't steal people's content, and if you do take someone's content, make sure to credit them in it in a way that is like easy to trace. Personally, for crediting, I'm going to evolve the existing methods that I already have. So for instance, whenever I'd have like a clip be made by Blythe, for instance, I'd put that as a text description within the video itself. Unless of course the person is not on the platform, I think that's not something that is actually quite scalable. So what I will do to kind of like enhance that is just to kind of just put a reply with a tag in it that I think works as well. Also, a little piece of advice, and I'm going to discuss this again on how X works very soon, and that is, which I think it's in like 3 days. Yeah, in 3 days I'll have that little show where we are going to discuss how X works, and I'll mention more on this later. But what you can in fact do is if you're on browser and you're about to make a post, you can add it to the post itself, like a reply is said effectively before you post it. And then if you post this, the whole thread and all crediting, it shows up in order, in perfect order, and is not mixed up. Because the problem is, if I were to say make a post, I put it out on the timeline, and I wanted to put additional details to it, I'd have to then reply, I post it, but the problem is if you do this, it just pops up randomly in your timeline, which is not supposed to happen. It just pops up right up at the top, because, I don't know. So that's not good. And to kind of prevent that from happening, you introduce the reply early on into the post before you post it, and you do it on browser. Works effectively. I've done it multiple times. It's beautiful. Like, I think let me find one example of this.
What is the difference of doing that reply on browser versus mobile?
So if you look at, it just works, and the other one doesn't. So if you look at, say, for instance, my timeline right now, you don't find any stray replies that are just like bombed into my timeline as center, right?
You mean like lines on the left?
Yes.
I'll definitely,
Not like lines on the left, but like actually the
I'll
reply
definitely
itself.
drive to Olympia
Okay, I'm
Park
looking at your timeline.
for tomorrow.
Right, yeah, I don't see any.
So if you look at the thing that I put up there, you see the one that I just pinned, you can actually see that there's a reply to that. And if I didn't do it the way that I just explained it, then effectively
I'll
that
definitely
thing
drive to
would
Olympia Park
show
for a
up
kiss tomorrow from this.
just like stray on the timeline without an actual connection to it. Which thankfully it does not.
Okay, I see. So it's... But I thought you don't want that connection on the left, because it looks kind of ugly.
It doesn't matter, actually. As long as it's not straight on the timeline, I don't really care.
Yeah, exactly. When it's on a timeline, it's not ideal.
No, but in this case it is. You wouldn't even notice that it was there.
Exactly.
Just like I just demonstrated.
Yeah, you don't want to, like, I don't want to see it, but when I'm on my own timeline, I do see it. But when I'm, let's say, when someone else looks at my account, they don't see it. So it's kind of a weird
Interesting.
effect.
I'll definitely drive.
engagement. Getting like tons of messages I have to look into. Oh, what do you think of that news list? It's kind of cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's like an infinite stream of information. It's so cool. Replying to a post before liking it is like putting shoes on before socks.
Pretty much.
Well, I mean, if I reply to a post and I don't like it anyways, I just reply to it. I don't actually see the reason to it. Like, you're signaling enough as is. If you want a max signal, you can actually give 4 engagements simultaneously. If you wanted a max signal, you could give a reply, then also give a like, then also give a bookmark, which counts as a silent like, and then also quote the thing that's like max amplification for any piece of content. It's like max signaling. Dude, fucking engagement from with this, I swear to fucking god. If you do, it's just gonna kick you out. But yeah, that's effectively how you can like a post twice. So if you really like a post, then you could, in fact, like it twice by liking it a bookmark, and technically speaking, because they both count so loudly. So it's also funny because then people would ask, hey, why is there like pornographic content in my timeline? Like, have you been bookmarking any of those? Reply to
Really funny.
and they're like super silent because that's not something they would initially. I can ask them, hey, do you like or engage with any of that? It's like, no, man, I just see it and then yeah. Like, do you bookmark it? And then it's like dead silence because who the fuck would ask that question as a follow-up to that answer? Knowing that is wild. Like, you know what I think is interesting? Is the negative association of the laser eyes meme. In reality, I think it's just like this reference to Mass Effect, where like this entity takes control of like other beings, and then the eyes go red. So it's like assume control. I thought that was the reference. It's like assume direct control.
Is it not?
I believe that's what it is. It's at least how I'm familiar with it. Could be wrong, but I don't know. Then of course it's the laser eye maxis from Bitcoin that have taken that up, where it's like Bitcoin to 100k, so they leave laser eyes in a profile picture until 100k. This is why Michael Saylor has laser eyes in a profile picture. In case people are wondering what the fuck is wrong with laser eye maxis.
What about Beth?
Same shit, you know, it's the meme that was started by Elon. Everybody like makes their profile darker, puts a flag in the background, makes it reddish, and has blue laser eyes on. That's just a meme, man. It takes on a life of its own. Actually, kind of cool meme. It really looks kind of cool. I like it. A lot of profiles have actually improved recently. It's like a design to make it more clear. Like your subject of yourself, the profile needs to be clear and concise within the miniaturized format. There's like one profile in particular on here that I think it does this exceptionally well. It's actually in the space down there, right there. It's Arash Malik. He has like a really interesting profile. Like if you look at it and you really look at the profile picture and then the banner, it's very nice. It's like very sleek. It's exactly what you should be going for. Like don't be me, I'm fucking weird. Do that. That's actually kind of cool. It's nice and clean. It's very memeable. And Bly is the same in a sense. It's very memeable in his direction. Very good. And Brozak does a lot of replying in a meme fashion, so his profile is excellent because it literally is a meme.
Sounds good.
I'm gonna invite him up because he also has a fucking good ass profile. Like profile designing is so fucking important. I'd say actually design on it.
Lawyers do not
It's
get
odd.
free transport.
Wiggles is good too.
Only free lunch.
Yeah, for me at least, it was like even.
Lawyers do not get free transport, only free lunch. Oops.
It's kind of odd.
Lawyers.
That's what I've chosen for myself.
Oh, my bad.
But isn't it you?
Oh, my bad. Oops.
It is.
My bad.
Exactly.
My bad.
It is always and will always be.
My bad. Lawyers do not get free transport,
Where is your
only
picture
free
from,
lunch.
Adrian?
Come again?
Where is your picture from?
Lawyers do not get free transport, only free lunch.
That's freaking impressive.
You should refine it a little bit as well. It's something I essentially use Midjourney as a base, but then
Lawyers
just
do
edited
not
the
get
rest of
free
it to make it
transport,
work
only
better.
free
Because
lunch.
like that's back then when AI had a lot of anatomy issues.
Fair. Yeah, back in the good old days of 2 years ago.
Exactly, it feels like so long. 2 years ago feels like almost a decade, right? Jesus, so long.
Jeez, at this rate, 1 month will feel like a decade a few years from now.
The question is whether or not we biologically age in a similar fashion thanks to all this additional data that we kind of consume. I'm not sure what that does to us mentally. I don't know if there are actually good studies on this, what happens to this kind of cognitive overload. You know what I mean? This is kind of like an unprecedented moment in history. We just don't know what the fuck is happening.
I wonder, maybe it depends on the person, like if you're using your executive functions often enough, then it's making you smarter. Otherwise, it just makes you dumb, because like, it's cognitive overload.
This is true. Yeah.
Yeah, there is no way to research it. Like the research is much slower than the time accelerant.
Damn, Wiggle. Do you think that's gonna be true for like meta technologies, VR, and all that too? Same thing.
Oh, my god.
That could be catching up, but it just everything like just the pace of events in physical world is just accelerating. Everything is more dense now than it was before, and it's hard to say like if we can catch up, unless you can foresee certain things before they happen, like in some predictive AI, then perhaps we could catch up.
Yeah.
Like for instance, forecasting stuff, like you just get better precision at it. Like we can forecast weather, perhaps we could forecast events before they happen with high precision.
Yeah, and I know NVIDIA is working on a couple of like climate prediction models. I think they call it the Earth model or something like that. Yeah, I think the crazy part for sure is the converging of these technologies. They compound on each other. Like, I feel like the advent of ChatGPT has accelerated how quickly you can learn information as an engineer or a scientist, and that'll probably have downstream, second order effects on like other, techs that will improve semiconductor discovery and so on. So it's like a crazy loop.
Yeah, and Elon is already working on like solving the language like bottleneck where we're like constrained by the language, understanding language. Imagine you just have concepts rather than words, compression. You can just through Neuralink, and you can just throw concepts back and forth, like you and perhaps someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's like endgame shit for sure. It kind of like reduces the barrier to knowing any particular language. I wonder if like there's gonna be like symbolic languages that are better for telepathy than like languages we have today. Like for example, would a hieroglyphs, compress more information visually to the reader, like when you're beaming thoughts to each other, or would it be just concepts, no symbols at all?
Yeah, like symbols is like you have to basically it's a compression, right? Like you have to like first like compress and then decompress, and that takes effort. So yeah, it's just difficult to imagine what it'll look like. I think it will first happen probably with the machine versus human, but I don't know.
Good point. Good point. And then the Thuzian paradox starts applying, right? At what point are your thoughts the machine's thoughts only? Are your thoughts the machine's thoughts?
Like when you think of moving a cursor on the screen, right? You don't think in words, likely. You just do it. So you mitigate, you know, like the latency.
Yeah, this is kind of what I've been talking about for quite a while. It's like humans don't think in language, they think in thoughts. And then they translate those thoughts into English or whatever language they're speaking.
Because the language itself is just kind of used as a transmission tool, almost like a protocol for information transmission, more or less, than it is the actual. This is why we have to essentially educate people using concepts that we actually do facts. If I were to tell you a bunch of numbers and ask you to make relations between these numbers, you're not gonna fucking get shit. You'll just see, okay, it's their numbers, now what? Right? If I don't give you the concept or to basically put them in some sort of structure, then it effectively means nothing. So that kind of like debunks language as language is also really good for storing information as well. That's something, much like text, you know, you look at that, it's the same kind of thing. So I think basically the language itself, the way that we communicate, is essentially the .txt version of communication, but it's like for humans in storage, right? If you look at like a .txt file, to store text information within that is massive. The compression of that is massive. It's so fucking good. If you have like a .txt file, which is like a megabyte big, jeez, that's fucking Christ. That's some schizophrenia-based volumes of information in there. It's like, wow. I have no idea what you did, how many web pages or books you copied, but that is huge.
1,000 pages.
Oh my god, yeah, it's like a continuous page.
Isn't all of Wikipedia like 40 gigabytes, not taking like the images and videos into account?
Come again?
I think all of Wikipedia is like a few, like I think it's 40 gigabytes or something, not taking the images and videos into account.
Potentially, yeah. The images always take up the most space. Like even with memes, if you have like thousands of memes on your computer, that takes up a lot of space. Take for me, I have like a meme arsenal. If we ever run out of food, if we could turn that into memes, we could feed a whole city. Or power it. If we took all the social media cringe and we were to turn that into energy, we could power away the planet. We mainly have to go to Instagram and look at all the lifestyle enthusiasts who are not so lifestyle healthy and whose enthusiasm isn't real.
Yeah, so I looked it up. All of Wikipedia, including all of its articles without media, is 22 gigabytes.
Oh, lawyers do.
Wow.
And that's including all the, I guess, locals or only English?
All the languages, yeah.
Oh wow. Because English is super expressive language. It's like the evolution of the modern language, of pretty much modern language. And like some languages are so verbose, like German, for example, and that it would take twice as more memory.
Yeah, I tell you, for me, it's insane. German language is extremely inefficient.
I don't know any European languages other than English, but from my experience, it seems like English is actually more restrictive than other languages.
No, but it's super elegant and it's beautiful because it can imply so much in so little. Versus, you know, like other languages where, yes, they're more descriptive, like German has a word for every little intricacy, every little part, like, you know, Krankenschwester, Hintergedanke, you know, all this, like...
It's not even like a word, it's like a combination of words.
Like, yeah,
it's like you take two words and you make it the singular. Like, They're like 32 character words, which are just words, but as a word put together. So it's like, what the fuck am I reading?
Why have spaces at all?
Yeah, I'm just gonna put everything together and speak it together and see what happens. It makes me sound like I'm drunk, probably I'm also on a few other mind-altering substances, and maybe I'm off this planet, but sure, that'll work. That will do its thing.
Well, it's a compression optimization.
I doubt that's very lossy. It's the problem. That's actually my problem with any type of talk about compression, is that most of it's very lossy in a sense, right? Especially in language, it's very lossy. So, you have to, you know.
Yeah, there's you have to look at the person's face, their facial expressions, their body language to get like everything, to even get like half the idea that is going on in their head, half of what's going on in their head.
Yeah, exactly. Like, two people can say the same sentence and mean totally different things based on context and what's in their head. So, if we can just directly see what's in their head, that would be way better.
Yeah, I wonder how do you, like, if you don't use a language, how do you portray this type of expression? Like yeah, like a concept, does it carry that context?
Okay, true. Actually, yeah, go for it, Jess.
I was gonna say, like, what I found interesting is that even though the brain, it can think without language, and thoughts are independent of language, I found that knowing multiple languages also introduces your brain to the ways of thinking, other types of thoughts. Like, for example, north, south, east, west, that type of thing, right? There's like tribes in Australia before the Europeans came, whose entire sense of direction was based off that, right? So their bodies automatically knew what was west, what was north, right? But for us, it's like left or right. And because in their mind, the language, it had become so ingrained that this is north, this is east, this is west. They would say like, go to your north direction, right? And they, without having to check, automatically knew where was north.
That's fascinating, and yeah, that definitely boils down to the, I think it's called the symbolic grounding problem in language, right? Where, like, language inherently is not necessarily grounded. You need somebody, like an observer, to ground that language and give it meaning. Otherwise, it's just an arbitrary bit string. Although, you know, I wonder, yeah, go for it, Adrian.
I kind of like wrote something similar to that, put it up at the top. It's just like my interpretation of language, where it kind of like functions as a
Words do not get free transfer,
right?
only
So
free
again,
lunch.
I think that the way I described that post that I just pinned, I think that's about as accurate as I can make it from my perspective. What I think language is like for me.
But why virus? Can you elaborate on that?
Well, much like anything that's symbiotic and also a virus, it infects you, and you yourself will find, say something like English, for instance, is not my first language, but it just basically took over everything, right? So it is almost viral, in a sense.
So you don't think in German?
Absolutely not. I think it's extremely ineffective. I don't think, nor do I dream in that language. I hate, like, because there's a lot of counterintuitive elements to it, one of which I'm most pissed about is counting.
Yeah, you have to say like 4 and 1, 5 and 1, right?
You like name the numbers in order. And if you don't name it in order, you can have a problem.
But English being a German language, wouldn't you agree that English is the latest evolution of a German?
Yes, like a virus.
Okay, I see now. So do you anticipate German to fade?
I anticipate many languages effectively fade. German maybe not, but at this current rate, say birth rates considered, and also immigration, as a species, Germans themselves will kind of vanish if they don't get their act together, discard a lot of the garbage ideologies that they've accepted from modernization, and get back to what they once were, essentially, effectively before the wars, right? Because that was, I think, one of the most successful iterations.
Hello.
So,
I just talked her, so I don't know where this conversation came from, but aren't Germans like one of the largest ethnicities in the world, in the Western world? Like, I might be slightly wrong here, but I'm pretty sure everybody from like Germany, Belgium, Austria, Netherlands, UK, France, Norway, Sweden, much of the United States,
I think it's
Canada,
not
Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, and so on. Like a lot of them are pretty much 100% German, right?
well, they have German relations, right?
I think one is like
Yeah.
Anglo-Saxons, and another one is, I think like Vikings, right? Those
Yeah,
are
but
the-
aren't those both German? Aren't those both German ethnic groups?
well,
There's a difference between Germanic ethnic groups and German. Like it's like Turkish and Turkic. There's a kind of a big difference between those two. They're like the main subgroup. But at least in Germany, there's no pure Germans because when the Soviets took over, they kind of let's say they left no German blood left in Germany.
Well, French people are pretty
Basically
much.
did as Congressman says and fucked everybody. Simple.
Aren't French people pretty much just German and Old Gallic? Because the Germans moved into Gaul, like 1800 years ago or something.
I'm not entirely sure about that. But when it comes in terms of the genetics themselves, if you look at what's happening right now, you'll see a trend, which should be concerning to anyone that lives there and will procreate.
so what do you think should change for that to inverse?
I think by and large this should happen everywhere in the world, is this shift back to a merit-based society. Because everything else has been taken completely out of context and stuff that really doesn't work and is completely irrespective of anything that has worked historically. It's just being done and there's like zero explanation for it. Stuff that just really, really does not make any sense. You know? And there are a lot of examples. Like for instance saying, you know, there's specific roles I think men and women both have, right? And they're different from one another. And of course there can be a kind of parallel in this as well, where sometimes there could be you know, something like a career woman in a sense, as long as it is balanced out with, of course, the potential for reproduction, because I think that's extremely important for the species. Just because you can forego it doesn't, like, just because you can kind of not do it doesn't mean that you should. You know what I mean? It's also important. You have to reproduce. As long as something like that is being like reestablished and not ignored, and something that says, oh, it doesn't need to happen, then I think things will improve once more. Because like everybody's different in a sense, and to just say, well, reproduction is like enslaving yourself. Like, how the fuck do you think you got here exactly? You're a mountain of fucking cells that came from your father's balls. Let's be very clear.
How are
And
humans
two
always-
people decided, hey man, we're gonna keep this extremely annoying little thing that's super, super cute and make sure it grows up to be the fucking thing it's now today that now shits on our ancestors. think about that real quick. Just think about that. I mean, they detest history because they don't understand it. That's an issue. That needs to stop.
They justify everything with nature, saying this is found in nature, this is found in nature, that is found in nature. I don't realize that humans are pretty much the only thing in nature that's now actively not having fucking kids.
It's hilarious, actually, yeah. So these nature for things, like, say, for instance, hyenas and their ability to just be, to change their sex, for instance. Well, guess what? If you want to go by nature law, humans cannot biologically do this without assistance. And even then, there are certain aspects of humans that cannot be changed. Like, say, for instance, reproductive organs. Unless, of course, you come up with some revolutionary technique that essentially takes what is a reproductive organ of that system and were to effectively maybe even grow a new one and then replace it wholesale, like as if you were to replace a part on a machine. And of course, that is a little further into the future, and current methods do not exist for that. And this way, you can create the illusion of a reproductive organ, but not the actual reproductive organ itself. Reading into how those procedures work, by the way, is a rabbit hole which will leave your mind grasping for an escape. Let's just put it that way.
Have you seen the memes that people post where they're like, white guys for Kamala, and it's a photo of somebody? You know what I'm gonna say?
I've seen, I tuber us 4chan, holy fuck. God, 4chan is a league of its own, I swear to God, it's wild. Somebody asked, they ask good questions on there, I'll be honest with you. Like, say, hey, hypothetically speaking, if I were to take a stool sample of something like a fucking gorilla and were to implant it into myself somehow, wouldn't that basically give me the same type of microgut biome that a gorilla has, wherein basically the microgut biome that they have allows them to, say, digest certain plant materials and turn them into actual proteins. Ironically enough, this is something I think if you could do this would be really cool, because that would be a solution for vegans, and it would actually make it so that you don't have to, eat animal things at all if you can actually process this stuff the way that gorillas do.
Well, I'm not sure if that would work because gorillas actually have a higher IQ than vegans.
So, hold on.
What is it?
So you're talking about how they have like a certain bacteria that turns the vegetation into protein, right?
Yes.
The humans do, yeah, I know about that, but humans don't have a big enough gut to actually have that microbiome. So we'd have to double or triple our body size just to make that happen.
And this is why we have MNR. I'm not gonna do it. You can fly wings happen, we can make that happen. But then at that same point, if you could effectively do this as well, why don't you just turn off this, the body generates this thing that causes muscle atrophy. What is this called again? Myo something. Oh, I forgot what it was. It's like a myostatin. It's myostatin. And what you could do is you could inhibit the myostatin gene, at which point it's no longer produced, and then your muscles effectively don't degrade, right? This is what lions, for instance, have. Lions have like the laziest lifestyle you can ever imagine, but somehow they're like the beefiest bitches on the planet. It's wild, right? Look at, say, for instance, something like this was once done to a mouse. You ever see what a cyber mouse looks like? That's a fucking cyber mouse. You have the normal-looking mouse that's all skinny and looks squishy and whatnot, and you have this big fucking bulky bitch that looks like a brick. I have no idea. How do you describe it? That's the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. Just Google that, myostatin inhibited mice.
You mean a rat?
Or rats too. It's just funny as shit.
You know the bulls that are like super muscular, the white ones. Those are because they have like a gene where they produce less myostatin.
Yes, yeah. It's like a cow that looks extremely muscular. Like imagine a normal cow, but it looks like a cartoon drawing from Family Guy. It's ripped next level.
Like on tier T.
Yeah, like that. Even better, because it's actually good. It just looks whack. It's just, I don't know how to say that. It's just...
Beth is on tier T, so yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I mean Jeff Bezos.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If you guys are familiar with some guy named Eddie Hall, he kind of has the same thing, where he has a gene where he produces way less myostatin than the average person.
Yeah, Eddie Hall, also known as, well, formerly the strongest man on Earth. Very cool dude. I like him very much. Generating some electric. Very nice. It was like brushed my hair, now it's like all loaded and shit because all the static electricity that generates. I go next to the light bulb and charge it real quick. I'm JK. You know, like those weird free energy videos where like somebody takes one of those copper coils and like kind of puts it around a magnet and then just like shows you, oh wow, the light's turning on. But in order to make that turn on, they actually have to continue moving that small little coil because that's how induction works. So it's just kind of funny because they say, oh, this is free energy, and I'm like, no, it's actually not. It's actually a very expensive form of energy, given that you ate a bunch of stuff that then turned the stuff into something that maintains the machine and also somewhat powers the machine that then basically moves this device, which then makes a light bulb light up. You just transferred energy from this place over here and put it over there, or into the system at least, it moved it. So the free energy thing is just weird. It's like saying, where did you hide the battery? Except that in this case, the battery is the person itself holding the thing. I'm pretty sure some people saw that weird ass video and came out and said, oh, wow, it's so cool, but it's just like a little coil of wire over a magnet, and if you move the coil of wire, then of course that creates energy. So it's like you moving the thing itself just transfers the mechanical energy from you into that thing, and then the rest of the self-explanatory. But free energy shells are like magicians in a sense, right? They have to hide how the thing actually works. Where did you put the battery? Guess what? It's inside you the whole time. It's a fun science experiment too.
Did you guys see that picture of there were like 12 semis, 12 Tesla semis in one picture?
I don't think I have. Can you find it and pin it?
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. It's an old one, but what prompted me to say that there is another, like, few more shots Tesla just posted of Teslas. But I'll find that old one second.
The /chance UI on X live streams are dog shit. So you just commented that. I'd largely agree with you on that one, to be honest with you. It's still very crude and has a lot of room for improvement. So I actually agree with you on that. Look, you can still use it. Does it have room for improvement? Absolutely. Does it mean I'm just gonna start going on about it on timeline? Absolutely the fuck I won't. You can make somebody else do it, say you won't. Okay, let's find it. Let's check the news list and see what's hot and fresh. More complaints about DEI. JD Vance has been saying a bunch of stuff, which seems to be relatively well received. I guess. Nope. MSNBC contributor Molly Joe Fast says JD Vance only wants white children in America, which is interesting because doesn't he have like 3 biracial children and his wife is Indian American? Kind of weird.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say that. I feel like this guy's supposedly a white supremacist, but has an Indian wife. How the fuck does that work?
Well, there is this meme where...
Yeah, I know. I started thinking about the meme too. How the fuck you for saying me that?
Sorry, it was a free lunch, not free transport.
Oh yeah, I heard of Tesla Sammys. Oh, wow, that's cool. The Tesla Semi is a really strange layout.
I think there
Like,
will,
second.
yeah, I think there will be like many variations. This is just they trying to nail it like at least one's most popular standard, but I think there will be ones with the sleeping quarters and everything, just like we see in the diesels. You know, like those really beefed up, sweet up trucks. I think semis will also have configurations like that.
Oh, wow. Jay, you're asked like in a rally there's in Reno had like issues with his microphone trying to offer something. And later he says, I've been told this is an American made microphone, so hopefully we're going to be in good shape. It says after being handed a new one. That's kinda cool. Nice.
Yeah, I found out actually that most, a lot of people don't like, a lot of Indians don't like J.D. Vance's wife apparently, because she's from like Telugu or something. Apparently like most Indians have beef with Telugu people for some reason. So like, I saw like all these Indians being like, no, why did she have to do
No. Oh, that's whack. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I swear, some people really do not have any idea what they're talking about. Like, they just say shit thinking it's real. What the fuck? Like, stuff about X, for instance, right? It just doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, somebody found some random stuff in a code that's like, protect class something, blah blah. And they say, oh my god, there's a specific list of accounts that are protected. We gotta make sure, blah blah blah. It's like, that's not how that fucking works. It's completely normal. It's just something else. Actually doesn't even do that. No one is exactly like it. And then they say, oh, why is this account over here protected from community nodes? That's bullshit. 0 people are protected from community nodes. Literally, Elon himself gets community noded sometimes on stuff that he said.